So there's a lot of talk at the moment about the Renters' Rights Bill, and rightly so. So I think it's important as a letting agent to have a perspective on how the law has changed over the years. And if we're going to leverage the Renters' Rights Bill so we can give landlords more value and increase our revenue, I think this perspective is really important. So to give you a timeline, let's go back to the Landlord and Tenant Act of 1985, which was a precursor to the 88 Act. And so in this law, there's a lot about landlords' repairing obligations, which are very important, which is well worth reading. So then we have the 1988 Assured Short Hold Tenancies, which come from the Housing Act 1988. So these were 6 and 12-month tenancies with a maximum of 5 years. And essentially, this law was created, it enabled landlords to get bad tenants out. Then we fast forward to the amendment of 1996. This was more about homelessness and changes in housing benefit legislation. And so really this law was more about keeping the tenants in. And then we fast forward again to 2004. And then we had the introduction actually back then of selective licensing. There was a lot of talk and legislation about antisocial behaviour, and the risk assessment for rental properties was pushed more onto the landlord. Then we go to 2007. This is when we had the HIPs and DIPs, obviously the good old Home Information Pack, which was meant to streamline the sales process, and obviously introduction of the DPS, deposit protection schemes, to stop bad letting agents from running off with the deposits. And so the custodial schemes are great. The insured schemes are still open to fraud, and it still goes on now. So then we go to 2008 with the introduction of EPCs for lettings. And obviously around this time, 2007, 2008 was the start of the credit crunch. And then we go to 2010, which is when the Home Information Packs, the HIPs were scrapped, but we kept the EPCs. And then we fast forward to 2023, and we've got the Rent Reform Bill. And then in 2025, which is now, we've got the Renters' Rights Bill. And they've just basically changed the name because it plays to a better narrative. 16 million renters, 16 million voters. But you might notice that going from 2010 to 2025, there's been very little change in housing legislation. And that's mainly because from 2010, when the credit crunch had really hit, it took 10 years for the economy to recover. Then in 2020, we're hit by COVID, so not much happened on the Rent Reform Bill. And so it took 3 or 4 years to come to fruition, which is now. So I think it's important to have a perspective on how the law has changed and how it affects the housing supply over a long period. Then when the Renters' Rights Bill comes in, we can leverage that better, give landlords more value and increase our revenues. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about the Renters' Rights Bill and 11 points which we can leverage as a letting agent to give landlords more value and increase revenue.